fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. Got my bro, Luke Simons.
Hello, hello.
You're supposed to say like diamonds.
Like diamonds.
All right. And we're talking about speckled trout on demand. Super pumped to be sharing this with you. For those of you that haven't heard yet through the grapevine, we have been working on a brand new mastery course, a master class, if you will, with Captain Peter Deeks, who holds multiple world records, including the longest speckled trout, ironically, and we're doing this speckled trout on demand. And what's really unique about it is, one, you get access to Peter Deeks. In this video right here, for those of you listening, you might want to at least just kind of take a little sneak peek here. That's what I'm giving you. This is the kind of a look inside the course. And this first video, 12 and a half minutes or something like that. I was honestly I was excited and disappointed. I was disappointed because, like, I've known Deeks forever. I fished with him many times. It was like, he's been holding back on me, that son of a gun. Like, the stuff he shared in this, just about the biology of speckled trout, like, blew me away. Like, it's worth the price of admission. If you watch nothing else but this first 12-minute video, you will have an edge over the speckled trout. And if you don't know Captain Peter Deeks' background, besides being amazing and the guy Bill Dance and the pros go to catch trophy fish, I mean, he was in school to be a doctor, a medical doctor. So he was in biology. He was a biology major. That's the kind of path he was going down, and made it to pre-med and all that, and ended up, becoming a fishing guide. So the dude's super, super smart. And he thinks, like a doctor, if you will. I mean, he was big into studying lateral lines and really just the biology of fish and why they go to different places at different times of the year and different depths and have different feeding habits, et cetera. And so he breaks down the biology of speckled trout like no other. The other interesting part, Luke, and you're one of the guests, and I'm going to go over here. If you're watching, you'll be able to see this in these regional secrets. So module 1 is about the biology and even approaching. This was, I take it back. You need to watch these first two are worth the price of admission. This is now just a bonus, about 23 minutes. And he actually shows how he goes and fishes actual spots in multiple areas. So it's not just East Coast of Florida. I mean, he breaks down on maps exactly how he positions and approaches his boat. Same with the kayak, or even same on foot. He gives some tips for you land lubbers, you people who fish at wading boots. Module 2, though, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, is it's broken down by state. In each state, Peter has reached out to what he believes and what we believe is the best trout expert in that state. I'm not going to reveal all the names just yet. I will a little bit later here in this podcast, and you get to see exactly who is representing each state, but they're all captains, full-time guides in each state, and they break down all of their best secrets on satellite maps. It's anywhere from an hour minimum to like 2 hours, each of these, private Zoom calls with Peter. And that was our promise to all these guides, is we're never going to show this public. So it is a course you have to pay for. We are going to be releasing it on Black Friday at 95% off. So Black Friday, it will be a special. So make sure to be visiting our site. If you're on our email list, you're a wise person, you will get a little offer. And of course, if you're a VIP member or a lifetime member, you're going to get it completely for free. It'll automatically be added into your account on Black Friday. But this course is, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best courses we've ever done. Not just because we have all these guides, but just the stuff that Peter lays out. I was blown away. And Luke, you interviewed Peter in the Florida East Coast side, and he interviewed you as the West Coast expert. And talk about that real quick, about your interview with Peter.
Yeah, so I interviewed Peter on his. So he's the expert for the East Coast of Florida, and he just knocked it out of the park. It ended up being a little bit over 2 hours, so longer than planned. But what he did is, for every season, and this is what all the other coaches did as well. But for every season, just dial in and show examples throughout the region, real life examples of the type of spots that the trout are going to be holding. And we even segment by the big trout. Like if you're just trophy hunting, those trout behave differently than the schoolie trout. So for every region, there's multiple examples of the exact type of spot to look for the big ones, as well as if you just want to go out and have some guaranteed tight lines. And after going through Peter's, I learned a ton. It was by far the best tutorial on trout fishing that I've ever seen. And so just by watching that, he really, he covers the same stuff in the intro, but it's more impactful, I thought, just to see his thought processes on where these trout are going to be positioning and why, most importantly. As Joe said, he has a background in biology. He actually loves it. And he applied biology that he's always liked to fishing. And so he's just been a student on how fish behave for many years. And it was the most insightful lesson on trout fishing that I've ever seen. So now I haven't fished over that coast in quite a long time. I still haven't caught a 30-inch trout. I've had some really close ones. And now I could feel confident that I'll know exactly where to go to target that 30-inch trout throughout all the seasons, where they move, why they're there. And also, just as importantly, if not more importantly, is what type of lures or baits are most likely going to work too. So it really covers the where to go, the lures and bait to use, and then the why, right? Like why does it all happen? That's why it took so long. But it was amazing. It's one of those things you can just click the button, kick back, relax, and just get 30 years of fishing knowledge just embedded in your brain, and something you can take on forever.
In a couple hours. I actually watched it, the Peter one this week myself, and because Luke had called me excited. He's like, dude, that was the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. He's like, Deeks literally shared stuff he's never shared. And the beauty of every one of these, from the Texas to the Carolinas and everywhere in between, is the guide. This is people who fish for trout all year long and really considered the best in their entire state. They're actually getting on satellite maps. So the entire thing is done on satellite maps. And Peter's literally taking his mouse and hovering over spots that he fishes, that he catches, anywhere from, hey, I'm going to go here and catch 50 trout in a day, just, fun for the family, or, hey, this is where I'm fishing in the spring or in the fall to catch gator trout. And here's what lures or bait I'm using. And more importantly, why? Because what he shared in his, I can apply it on the West Coast. I can apply it in Texas when I'm there. I mean, so much of it you can apply anywhere. But even though we say that, we have that course as well with C.A. Richardson, which is a great one. But the one thing that we always heard feedback on is, C.A. is a Florida guy, and so he knows that area and doesn't know my area in Texas well. And yeah, may or may not be the case. I mean, certainly C.A. has fished all over the place and has tips that apply there. But this one is special because we do get the experts in every single state. I mean, just staple this thing shut and say it is the best trout course ever made. And once again, going live on Black Friday, coming up real soon. And we're going to do 95% off special for a very, very short time. So get it while you can. Might even throw a free pack of lures in. We will see. And then in this course as well, just kind of go through their modules. And then we're going to share some cool tips about catching speckled trout, kind of starting with some lures. And Luke's going to get on a map and kind of show some areas as well. And in this module 3, so module 2 is all the different states and the experts. And we even give the MP3s. I believe we're going to give that as a bonus. You can listen to it in the car, et cetera. And then we talk about the equipment and rigging. So basically, Peter took notes on what all these guides said. And there's obviously a lot of overlap, which is good. It wasn't confusing saying, well, this guy says do this, this one says do that. And he basically took all the top rigs and put them all in a video on the water and showed exactly how to do them and how to use them. And then module 4 is all about the retrieval tips. So actually getting out in the water once again and showing how he retrieves to get more strikes per cast. Really, really critical part, right? Because the last thing you want to do is watch this stuff, get in the right spot, and then either have the wrong lure bait, have it rigged incorrectly, or not retrieving it right. And that happens all the time. We've seen it on our boat, right? Because we're obviously, if they're on our boat, they're in the right spot, we're catching fish, and the person in the boat right next to us isn't. And a lot of times it's about the retrieval speed or how they even rig their lure or bait. So anyhow, amazing course. Luke, you want to get on the map and share some stuff?
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. It's just the full recipe. And what was interesting, because I used to live over in Melbourne on the east coast of Florida, and I was fishing a lot of tournaments. That's actually how I met Peter. I was fishing against him. And when he was going through the Sebastian area, which is the area that I used to fish, he literally pinpointed when he was showing the type of spots based on the season. He literally pinpointed most of my big trout spots that I won a lot of money in tournaments. And it was just like, wow, man, like he literally just totally dialed it in. So if you go through the Sebastian area, if you listen to that section and look at those spots, those are legit spots that big trout that I personally have caught a bunch of big trout in.
That's pretty funny.
So just to kind of give some tips, so you can get a little bit of an idea of how the experience is in this course, and just more importantly is to get some helpful tips on catching trout. Is I'm just going to show just a brief example. So what we were basically doing is getting on the online maps and just showing some spots, and then talking about how these fish move and where they're going to be most likely located, and then how to approach. And so we'll just give just a quick little example. Obviously, it's going to be much more in depth in the actual course itself, but right now it's going to be, we're talking about launching this in around Thanksgiving timeframe. So we're talking late fall. I don't know when does winter officially start? I think it's in December. So talking about late fall, almost into winter, starting to get cold. And what these trout do is in many cases, they don't go a really long distance. They're not like snook and redfish that move a lot more. But what they like to find are areas that are like this, where we have a big bay. So in this case, it's Tampa Bay, but insert whatever bay you want. And they just love in areas with seagrass.
Baffin Bay.
What's up?
Baffin Bay.
Yeah. In areas with seagrass, which a lot of us fish. It's very similar with marshes, and again that section.
Green Bay.
What?
Oh, you said insert any bay I want.
Okay. Throwing out bays. I was like, I get you. I'm a little slow, but I finally. But we'll just talk about the grass flat area because we're just use Tampa Bay as the example. But trout really like to stay in water that has some pretty good salinity. But they also like to have some deep water nearby for when these cold fronts come in, right? They're already sensing that the water's cooling down. So now they're starting to get into preservation mode, where they need to start shifting into areas with deep water and also wind protection. So some ideas and types of spots to look for to get out, to find some warmer pockets of water, is to look for deep zones that are wind protected. So in this case, we're zooming in, and we have this little bay right here that's formed. I'm assuming this is a man-made little point in some capacity, but there's protection from the wind, and usually it's a north wind, right? This wind is coming from the north in most cases during the winter, and that's what the coldest winds are going to be. So they usually focus in areas that are wind protected, and look for areas that have some deep pockets as well, because as these cold fronts come through, the shallow water, right? The shallowest water has the most impact to the air, right? And so, but if you're in 10 feet of water, that water on the bottom is not going to be nearly as cold as that top part of the water that is basically touching the air. And also the less wave activity, that's less surface area to the air, which means there's going to be less, the water's going to hold its heat better. So they really like to find areas, again, we'll just kind of buzz through a couple of them, but areas like this with some deep water that's pretty close to a shoreline that has wind protection. And you need to have some underwater structure as well. So in this case, like this is a nice looking point that comes out. We have some mangroves. We have a shelf. You can see there's some grass along the shelf, right? You can zoom in and see a little bit of splotchy bottom. You can see some little grass patches out here. This is the type of spot that all of these trout will gravitate towards when there's a cold front. And so they're starting to shift to these types of areas. And so these are the smart play type of spots to go to for late fall, early winter trout fishing. So after the cold front, they're basically going to be hunkered down right in the calm zones and right on the edge, on the deep side of the edge. And then on those sunny days where we get, handful, say 4 or 5 days a row of warmer water, now they can have some shallows to go up into to feed and to get warm, right? Because as that sun is just baking on this shallow, dark bottom area. That's going to make the water warmest up in the shallows. So it basically transitions. And so in the middle of the day, these big fish can now just move up and now get warm up here and start feeding. So it's just, once you know just that kind of, that's a very top level overview of their biology and how they'll just naturally move based on the weather, then you can just significantly predict where they're going to be.
I love it. Yeah, go for it, Luke.
I was going to say, this is the exact premise that I used on a recent trip. I had an amazing trout fishing day on big trout. And this is the exact premise that I used. A cold front was pushing in, and in the middle of the day, I guess the best bite started about 11 o'clock. And it was just as the water was starting to warm. And it was a spot just like this, where there was some mangroves with some wind protection. And there was some, in this case, there's some oysters and grass, but the fish were just right on the shelf. And so I was just picking them off as they were moving up the flat as the sun was warming that water. And it was crazy how they were exactly where they're supposed to be. And it got to the point where I knew exactly where on the shelf they were holding. And so I was even predicting like which twitch I'd get to thump on. And it was like one after the other. It was insane. But again, and that was exploring an area I'd never been to before. And I just used the basic knowledge that I've known over the years, and that Peter helped really fine tune in that discussion I had with him. And it was shocking how predictable they actually are once you just know the mechanics.
Yep. And one of the tips, I'm just going to share a couple of random ones that he talked about in the course, is the causeway tip. And this is great for anyone, right? Regardless if you're in a boat or a kayak, or if you're just pulling up in your car or truck and want to fish real quick. And he says, causeways are everywhere. You got them in Texas, you got them in the Carolinas, you got them in Georgia, you got them all here over Florida. And for the most part, causeways are man-made, and they have to dredge right on around the side of where the causeway exists today to get fill dirt to build the causeway. And he's like, in every case, they had to dredge for the most part. And you're going to find things change over years. You could have a causeway that's 40 years old and they dredged 40 years ago, and it used to be really deep, and now it's only a couple feet deep. But he's like, that even just a foot difference compared to at the depth everywhere else is a little pocket, especially here in the fall and winter. And he's like, they will congregate in those little pockets like crazy. And he's like, I've had some of my best days just pulling the truck up to a causeway in the fall and the winter, and literally just making cast into that little, deeper trough, if you will, right near a causeway. And I thought that was a great tip. And you could see it. You can see it on many maps when you look at little causeways, and you're like, oh man, I never noticed that before. And sometimes it's just a slight difference. Sometimes it's really obvious, like the one that you showed earlier. But sometimes it's just a small little like a dip or just a discoloration. And those are the kind of areas that you want to be targeting.
Yeah, and that might be the reason why there's this, you can see this big deep zone right here. But again, those deep zones, right? That's so if the wind's blowing from the east, which is normally the case, I have to imagine, I haven't fished here before, but this is the ideal type of spot to look for, either this hole or even the main channel. That's exactly where this trout would naturally gravitate. Like even Nathan Fulks over in Texas, one of our members, he's a fishing guide down there, and after that really nasty Texas storm, it was basically a ice storm in Texas in March. And a lot of the fish had started moving up shallow, and they just got zapped. They didn't get off fast enough. So it had a huge trout kill, which was terrible to see. But a lot of the fish did get to the main channel. And so he was out just kind of scouting around, a few weeks later, and he was having some of his best days of trout fishing ever because all the fish naturally gravitated to the channel, and they held there for a little bit, right? They just got spooked. Obviously, they got close to life-threatening temperatures. And so they sat there for a while, and he was just, it was insane. Like not only quantities of trout, but very big trout. Mm-hmm. And he got onto it because he knew how trout behaved, right? And so most people are going out and they're not catching anything because all the stuff in the shallow water, all the trout in the shallows either left or basically died. But out here in the channels, they were as thick as can be. So and a ton of trout did survive, obviously. So it's cool to just know, it's just powerful to know how the fish react to certain conditions, because you can predict with very good accuracy exactly where they're going to be, just to make sure that you consistently catch fish. That's really the way to be consistent, is to study the fish.
Yeah. And when you invest in this course, in just going through just a couple of the videos, you will have an upper edge on these fish. Like you will know more than 99% of all people out there, including many guides, about going out and catching trout. And the Speckled Trout on demand has kind of a two-way meaning. On demand meaning that you could go out there and catch them on demand. Sorry, swallowed my own saliva or something. That you can go out there and catch them on demand. But number two, it's on demand, meaning it's online. And, some people in the past, because we have I think we have like 28 or 29 now mastery courses. And we've had some people in the past say, I really wanted a, DVD. Yeah, DVDs are kind of cool, I guess, if you still have a DVD player. But more importantly, the DVDs aren't interactive, right? DVDs, they can get scratched, you can get lost, you move, put them in a box, and they're crack in half, they're done. Whereas this is online, it's interactive. And we've made updates to almost every single course over the years. Whereas, a DVD, it's static, it's stagnant, it never changes. Our courses are changing all the time. One, just from feedback and even other people adding input to things that they found that have worked in their area. And that's what I love about this one. It's broken out by state, by expert in each state. We'll probably have some really cool intel coming in just from comments and user generated feedback on things that have worked for you guys in your certain state or area. So I'm really, really pumped for you guys to see this. You want to share anything about, lures in particular, which ones you're focused on for fall/winter?
Yeah, so we'll start with just going out and catching fish, which is what a lot of people want to do, right? You have some kids, you want to get them out interested in fishing, even a spouse or girlfriend, husband, whatever, and just keep it simple. And just a small little paddle tail is the way to go. It's hard to beat. You can take this over areas. I'll just show you some. I'll get back on the map back up, but take it over on the outside edges of grass flats in the fall. Those fish, again, they're starting to get cold. They're wanting to be close to the deeper, warmer water. And so where they're going to be, and I'll even show you some of my spots, where they're going to be is just right on the edge of the flats. And so you don't have to go a long distance. This is literally a spot that I've caught a ton of trout in, even by trolling.
And we actually waded out there that one time, remember?
Yeah, you can wade it. We waded it from the boat ramp. You can just walk right out here at a low tide. It gets kind of deep at high tide. Mm-hmm. But right on the edge here is the most probable spot. If there's 4 or 5 days of warmth, then they'll in many cases shift up in the shallows. But again, not far. They'll just shift to just a little bit shallower. And then if a cold front just came through, they're going to shift a little bit deeper, like on the very far outside of the flat. But if you take one of these lures, this is a Slam Shady 2.0, it's a 3.5-inch paddle tail, a 1/4 ounce jig head, and you cast that out and just bounce along the bottom or just swim it just above the seagrass, you're going to catch fish. It's just a matter of how many. And in some cases, you're going to catch an absolute ton. I had a total field day where I was just trolling around, just testing out. It was when I just started trolling, I was testing it out. And every time I would pass by here, in some cases, I doubled up. I'd have 2 rods. Going, and it's just, oh my gosh, there's a ton of trout here. So then I'll just go upwind and drift through, and then you can really, really rake them in if you're drifting and casting. But all it takes is just a little paddle tail like this. Works surprisingly well, even without the tail. In some cases, I'll purposely take the tail off, or a puffer will take it off for me. But even the nub works really well. Sometimes even better. If you see a lot of really small bait fish, the benefit of having a soft plastic is you see that small bait fish. That's what they're keyed in on. So you can literally rip off the tail. Now you have what we call the nub lure, which is, instead of being a 3.5-inch lure, now we're talking about a 2-inch lure, and they'll smack it. And so you just give it a little twitch. It has a nice little darting action in the water, and they just can't resist it. Even after cold fronts where the wind's just cranking, and it's the days that we used to not fish because we just thought fish had lockjaw. Like, that was a term we used to use all the time.
Yeah.
I now do not use that term ever, because especially for trout fishing, because again, as long as you know how they move, even after the nasty cold fronts, you're going to be able to get a lot of fish. In many cases, after the cold fronts, you can catch the most fish because they'll congregate all in the same area. So as soon as you find them, you can just totally have some of the best fishing days of the year as far as quantities go, just based on those cold fronts. And it's so powerful. Again, like the winter was the time where we used to hardly fish at all, right? And because they're cold, they have lockjaw, and that's not the case at all. So if you're that type of believer like we used to be, highly recommend just getting this course and just using the tips in there, because you're going to quickly find that these cold fronts really make those trout extra predictable.
Yeah. And just make sure you're hitting the bottom or getting near the bottom, maybe even slow down your retrieve, especially around this time of year. And that's the beauty of this course. We talk about every single season, but for right now, this is the time. Let's just say you find one of these little holes and it's 7 feet deep. And if you're ripping that paddle tail through and just the top 2 feet, you're probably not going to get any strikes. There could be literally 100 trout down there, and most of them are trying to conserve their energy. They're down there. They're still hungry. They still want to eat, but they want the easiest meal possible. And if they see something going over, even if it looks delicious, even if it's a Slam Shady with Dr. Juice, it's another little shortcut, is put some scent on there, some Dr. Juice scent. They're probably not going to, come after it like they would a topwater lure in the spring or fall. I mean, it's winter. They're down there. And remember, Luke, we found a couple of those holes, and you literally, you're just going nice and slow, popping off the bottom, and they're destroying it. But you could literally have the next guy come in that same hole and be dragging stuff or ripping stuff through as fast as they can and not get a single strike and say, oh man, this thing didn't have any trout. And they're all sitting there just packed down laughing at you. So it's critically important. And we say that because we've made that mistake many times. Like I made it on video, that one of those first live videos that we did, I didn't have a heavy enough jig head, and I was literally missing all the fish. And Luke was proving me that there were fish in the same spots I was casting. He was getting in down a little bit deeper, and it made all the difference.
Yeah, depth control is huge, and the same thing applies for going up to the shallows. So for and the bigger trout are usually in the shallows. So after a few days of warmth, those big trout will usually push off of the deep zones and they'll push up into some nearby shallows, especially if there's some mullet and some big forage to have. But even if there's not a whole lot of bait, these shallows are now going to be the warmest areas. Those big trout know that. They're so big, they don't care about birds, right? They're not worried about a bird swooping down and getting them. So they'll come up in the real shallow water, sometimes, a foot or even less, and they'll be ready to eat, right? They're now warm, they're happy, and now you need a shallow running lure. So this is the case where you totally drop the jig heads, no jig heads, use weighted hooks and a split tail soft plastic. That this is what I've caught most of my big trout on. When tournament fishing, this is the Alabama Leprechaun. Before we had the Alabama Leprechaun, I was using the same type of lure. And this is what pretty much all of my, over 26-inch trout were caught on. And this is just totally deadly up in the shallows. And that's where those bigger trout are on those warming days. On the cold days, they'll be out here with the smaller ones. But on those warm days, you will usually not catch as many, right? Because there pretty much no small ones go that shallow. But those big ones are up there, and they're up there with a vengeance. That's what I got onto the other day, the other week in Bradenton. Those trout, the big trout, had just pushed up in the shallows. They were happy. They were hungry. Even in the middle of the day, just totally had a field day with them. And it was with this lure, right? This is the exact setup right here. So that's weighted hook, awesome. Alabama Leprechaun, or any 5-inch jerk shot for that matter. But this one, they just seem to just love it. Something about, I think it's just a unique color that they're not used to. They just come up and smack it.
Show me the gold.
But yeah, that's just a simple taste, right? I just wanted to kind of give some examples of what the course shows, and it's just real life maps, and then explaining why the fish are moving, and then even just it goes into extra detail like how to approach and all that fun stuff.
Cool. Let me I'll share here real quick. Desktop number 1. Thank you, Zoom, for making this so nice. So can you see that, Lukey?
I see it.
All right. So if you're wondering, I told you earlier, I'd share with you who the experts were. And so starting here in North Carolina, starting up at the top, we got Captain Chad Morgan, Real Faith Fishing Charters, Atlantic Beach. Dude is an amazing. I've started watching all of these. And man, he actually, I believe, it was Chad that kicked it off with a pretty powerful prayer too. And then all these guys, man, just shared so much. It was awesome. And then South Carolina Captain Mike McDonald, Gull or boy guide service. Man, I can't do it. I'm so tired. We've been fishing all day. We actually, we had a fun day today using some of these same tips. Georgia Captain Tony Gaskins, a lot of you guys know who that is. He's on the Redfish Tour. That guy is awesome. East Coast, we already talked about Captain Peter Deeks. South, we got Mark Hollywood Johnson. So Captain Mark Johnson, who ironically was born in Hollywood, Florida. So he fished all in Lauderdale and Miami, and now has lived down in the Keys for 30 years. And he did a great job on getting trout down south, which is not talked about enough because, everyone down there is always talking about tarpon and snapper and going after mahi, but he absolutely killed it there. And then Luke, like diamonds, on the west coast of Florida. So Florida is the one state we broke out in 3 different areas because they are a little bit different. And then Alabama, and even including part of the Panhandle, is Captain Jay O'Brien of Irish Wake Fishing Charters. Awesome job there. Mississippi, Captain Terry Pratt, catching on fishing charters. Louisiana, Captain Chaz Champagne. Captain Chaz did an awesome job. And then Texas, a lot of people know Captain Chad Peterick. Man, awesome job there out of Corpus Christi. And, he's well known. And both those guys, both Louisiana and Texas, and you can find the 2 of them and both of their corresponding, top magazines. Like we have Florida Sportsman, they have Texas Sportsman, Louisiana Sportsman. Those guys are in there quite a bit and absolutely just killed it. But even if here's what I would tell you to do is 1, get the course. It's a no-brainer. We even give you your money back if you don't think it's the best course on trout you've ever been through, and go through that first module, go through all those videos. Like it's just 4 of them, right? So right there alone, you'll be like, all right, already paid for itself. And then go pick your guide, meaning if you're in Texas, go watch Chad. If you're in, the west coast of Florida, watch Luke's. If you're in the East Coast, watch Peters. And then regardless of where you are, watch Peters, because I believe he shared stuff that anyone can learn from on how to go get big gator trout and just how to get trout on demand, like all kinds of trout, tight lines, because that's really the goal for most of us. Yeah, we all want to catch a PB trout, love to catch a state record trout, but end of the day, I really just want to make sure I'm getting tight lines first and foremost. So do that, and then go through, some of the rigs and the retrievals. That part's really important too. But if you just follow that, meaning don't feel like you got to watch every single one of these, I think you should. But just to make it easier and a little bit less intimidating, first module, then pick your guide for your area, for your region, and then watch the Peter Deeks one, and then start kind of, doing a la carte, picking which ones that you're interested in, and eventually, make it to the course. You have lifetime access, which is the beauty of it. And as I said, we're going to be launching this on Black Friday. So stay tuned for some emails from us. And if you're not on email list, make sure to be on our site. We'll probably have a little pop-up where you can get it at 95% off. It's going to be a great deal. Anything else there, Lukey?
Yeah, I would just kind of reiterate what you said. This is the best trout course. I still haven't seen all of it. I just from watching Peters alone and that intro, that video that Joe mentioned, it is the best source of trout information that we've ever seen. That's why we have such a big guarantee. Where if you get it and you don't think that this is the best course, the best information you've had on trout fishing, just let us know. We'll give you a full refund. No questions asked. It really is awesome. We just want to see you out there catching more fish and having more fun, because that's what really helps keep the fisheries up. It's really us anglers that keeps the waterways clean, right? We're the ones picking up people's trash, and the people who don't respect fishing are the ones who are leaving trash around. So the more anglers we have out there that are out there catching fish and having fun, the better off we all are. So we're happy to offer this course at such a good price, and hope you take us up on it. Yep.
Stay tuned. Black Friday coming at you. Speckled trout on demand. Hope you learned something from this too, Luke. Thank you for sharing some cool tips on that. That was just a very, very small segment, a little taste of what we cover in the actual full course. So you're going to love it, be blown away by it. And like I said, you VIP and Lifer members, you get it completely for free. So if you want to become a VIP member, a VIP insider, you can ask us about that as well. I don't believe it's a public offering right now, either is Lifer, but if you're currently, you have to be an insider member first, and you can email us and we can hook you up with that if you choose to just upgrade now and get this course for free. So thank you guys. You'll see that first. You get it before everybody else, and I can't wait to hear what you think. Otherwise, we'll talk to you in the next episode, and I will see you in the course, because we'll all be in there since it's interactive. Pretty cool.
Yep.
All right. Peace. See you, Luke.
'cause fishing, it's in my soul.